And to my granddaughter, Catherine Miller, I leave Pacific Maritime Industries, including all assets, contracts, and property thereof. The lawyer's words hung in the air of the small conference room as my in-laws' expressions shifted from boredom to disbelief. I sat perfectly still, my hands clasped in my lap, as the implications sank in. My grandfather had left me his shipyard. "This is absurd," Elizabeth Warner, my mother-in-law, broke the silence. "She knows nothing about ships." "Daniel, say something." My husband shifted uncomfortably in his expensive suit. "Kate, maybe we should discuss." "What's to discuss?" Howard Warner, my father-in-law, interrupted. "It's a failing shipyard full of rusty boats and outdated equipment, probably worth less than the land it sits on." I thought about my grandfather's last words to me just a week before he passed. We'd been standing on the observation deck overlooking the yard, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold. "They don't see it, Katie," he'd said, his weathered hands gripping the railing. "They look at these ships and see only metal and rust. But you see what I see. Potential. Promise. The things that hide beneath the surface." At the time, I thought he was just being philosophical. Now, watching the Warners react to my inheritance, I wondered if there had been more to his words. "Mr. Davidson," Elizabeth turned to the lawyer, "surely there's been some mistake. Catherine has no experience in maritime industries. She's an engineering project manager at a tech company, for heaven's sake." "The will is quite clear, Mrs. Warner." Mr. Davidson adjusted his glasses. Mr. Miller was very specific about his wishes. He pulled out another envelope. "He also left this letter for Catherine to be opened privately." I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Howard snorted. "Probably instructions on how to file for bankruptcy," he muttered. "The yard hasn't had a major contract in years." That wasn't entirely true. Pacific Maritime Industries had been selective about its contracts, taking on mostly smaller jobs lately. But I'd seen the quality of work they produced during my visits with Grandpa. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, even if the facilities looked dated. "I'll give you $50,000 for it," Howard announced. "Save you the headache of trying to manage something you don't understand." I thought about the hours I'd spent with Grandpa in his workshop, learning about ship design and maritime engineering while my husband played golf with his father. About the projects we discussed, the innovations he'd sketched out in his ever-present notebook. "No, thank you." "Don't be foolish," Elizabeth snapped. "You can't possibly run a shipyard. What would people think?" By people, she meant her country club friends, who already looked down on me for working in technology instead of joining their charity committees. "I believe we're finished here," I said to Mr. Davidson. "Unless there's anything else." "Just some paperwork to sign." He slid several documents across the table. "The transfer can be completed by Monday." That evening, alone in my home office, I opened Grandpa's letter. "Dear Katie, if you're reading this, the vultures are already circling. Don't let them rush you into any decisions. What I've left you is more than just a shipyard. It's a legacy. One that I've protected carefully, waiting for the right person to continue it. In my office safe, combination, your grandmother's birthday. You'll find everything you need to understand why Pacific Maritime isn't just another small shipyard. The files are classified. Yes, classified. Read them carefully. Trust John Martinez in operations. He knows everything. The Warners see the world in terms of stock portfolios and social status. They never understood that real value isn't always visible from the street. You do. Take your time. Review everything. And remember what I taught you about looking past appearances. With love and faith in you, Grandpa Mike." My hands trembled as I read the letter twice more. Classified files. What had my grandfather been working on? A knock at my office door made me jump. "Daniel." "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Dad wants us to come over tomorrow to discuss the situation." "The situation?" "The shipyard, Kate. Be reasonable. You know nothing about running a maritime business." I thought about the engineering degrees hanging on my wall, the years of project management experience, the countless hours spent learning from Grandpa. "I know more than you think." He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Kate, please. Dad's willing to increase his offer to $75,000. Just take it and avoid embarrassing yourself." "Embarrassing myself?" I stood up. "Like I embarrassed you by having a career instead of playing tennis with your mother's friends. That's not fair." "No, What's not fair is you assuming I can't handle this because it doesn't fit your family's idea of suitable work for a Warner wife. He sighed heavily. Just think about it, okay? Dad's trying to help. After you left, I sat at my computer, pulling up everything I could find about Pacific Maritime Industries. The company's public records showed modest but steady business, specializing in custom work and specialized retrofitting. Nothing unusual. But something nagged at me. During my visits, I'd noticed areas of the yard that seemed unusually secure. Sections Grandpa never showed visitors. Projects he wouldn't discuss. At dawn, I drove to the shipyard. John Martinez, the operations manager Grandpa had mentioned, was waiting at the gate. "Ms. Miller," he said formally, though he'd known me for years. "Your grandfather said you'd be coming." "He told you." "He told me many things." John led me through the quiet yard. Things I couldn't share until now. The morning sun cast long shadows across weathered buildings and seemingly abandoned dry docks. But I noticed details I'd missed before. Security cameras disguised as light fixtures, reinforced doors with keypad locks, sections of the yard screened from satellite view. Grandpa's office was exactly as he'd left it. Models of ships lined the walls, technical drawings covered his desk. The safe was hidden behind a painting of his first boat. My hands shook slightly as I entered the combination. Inside, I found a thick folder marked classified and a USB drive. "Those are the real contracts," John said quietly. "The ones that don't officially exist." For the next 2 hours, I read through documents that changed everything I thought I knew about Pacific Maritime Industries. The shipyard wasn't failing. It was running secret government projects, specialized modifications for Navy vessels, prototype testing for classified marine systems. Work that had to be done off the books, away from prying eyes. "How long?" I asked John. 20 years. Your grandfather's expertise in marine engineering caught some important attention. They needed a small, reliable yard for sensitive projects. Somewhere that wouldn't attract notice. "The outdated equipment?" He smiled. "Take a closer look." We walked to what appeared to be an old warehouse. Inside, past layers of security, I found state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment, computer-controlled fabrication systems, technology that wouldn't exist in the civilian sector for years. "This is why he left it to you," John said. "You have the engineering background to understand the work, the project management skills to run it, and the discretion to keep it secret." My phone buzzed. Daniel again. "Dad's expecting us for dinner. He's prepared all the paperwork for the sale." I looked around at the hidden heart of Pacific Maritime Industries, at the legacy my grandfather had built and protected, at the truth beneath the carefully maintained illusion of a struggling small business. "Tell Mr. Warner I won't be coming," I typed back. "I have a shipyard to run." John handed me a secure phone. "You'll want to take this call. It's from the Pentagon." I smiled, thinking of my grandfather's words about seeing beneath the surface. The Warners thought they were saving me from embarrassment. They had no idea what they were trying to take away. The secure phone felt heavy in my hand as Admiral James Richardson outlined the situation. "Your grandfather was a key partner in our Advanced Marine Systems program," he explained. "Pacific Maritime's work has been crucial to national security." "I understand," I said, watching through the office window as workers moved about the yard. Workers who, I now realize, held high-level security clearances. "We need to know if you're prepared to continue the relationship," the Admiral continued. "The current projects are sensitive and time-critical." I thought about the technical specifications I'd just reviewed, the innovative designs that bore my grandfather's distinctive touch. "I am," I replied. "But I'll need to deal with some family complications first." "Ah yes, the Warners." He paused. "Your grandfather mentioned them. Just remember, nothing about our work can be disclosed. Nothing." After the call, John showed me the real operation. Behind the facade of peeling paint and rusty equipment lay a cutting-edge facility. Advanced composite materials research, prototype testing pools, specialized manufacturing cells. "Your grandfather maintained the old appearance deliberately," John explained. "It kept people from asking questions." My phone buzzed continuously, texts from Daniel, calls from his parents. I ignored them all until a message from Elizabeth caught my eye. "Your stubbornness is embarrassing the family. Howard has connections who can make running that junkyard very difficult." I showed the message to John. He laughed. If they only knew who our real connections are. The next morning, I arrived at the Warner estate for the emergency family meeting they demanded. Howard sat behind his massive desk, transfer papers ready. Finally seeing reason, he asked as I took a seat. Actually, I'm here to discuss your offer. I smiled. I've had it assessed. 75,000 is inadequate. Elizabeth sniffed. For that decrepit yard? Please. You're right, the yard does look decrepit. I pulled out my own folder. But appearances can be deceiving. What's that supposed to mean? Howard demanded. It means I've reviewed the books. The real books. Pacific Maritime Industries' actual value is, I named a figure that made Elizabeth spill her tea. Impossible. Howard sputtered. There haven't been any major contracts. Any public contracts, I corrected. Would you like to guess why? Daniel leaned forward. Kate, what are you saying? I'm saying that my grandfather built something remarkable, something valuable, something I intend to continue running. You can't, Elizabeth declared. You don't have the expertise, the connections. My secure phone rang. The Admiral's name flashed on the screen. Excuse me, I said sweetly. I need to take this call from the Pentagon. The silence as I discussed classified project timelines was delicious. Howard's face cycled through shades of red. Elizabeth's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. After I hung up, Howard tried a different approach. Kate, be reasonable. With my business experience, we could expand the commercial operations, make it a proper. No, I stood up. The yard stays exactly as it is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the Navy's Advanced Systems Development Team. The Navy? Daniel's voice cracked. What's really going on, Kate? I can't tell you. I gathered my things. But I suggest you stop trying to interfere with my inheritance. Some of our connections don't appreciate complications. Elizabeth followed me to the door. You can't just walk away from this family's guidance. Watch me. Over the next few months, I immersed myself in the yard's operations. The work was fascinating. Cutting-edge technology disguised as routine maintenance. We developed systems that wouldn't be public knowledge for years. Daniel moved out after I refused to share details about my work. I can't be married to someone who keeps secrets, he said. You mean you can't be married to someone who won't bow to your family's control? I corrected. Howard tried using his business connections to cause problems until two serious-looking men in dark suits paid him a visit. He stopped after that. Elizabeth still hosted her charity galas, but the whispers had changed. Why did government vehicles visit that worthless shipyard? Why did Catherine Miller have a military escort at industry events? 6 months after inheriting Pacific Maritime, I sat in my grandfather's old office, my office now, looking at photos of his early days in the yard. John knocked on the door. The new prototype passed final testing, he reported. Admiral Richardson is very pleased. Grandpa would have loved to see this, I said, touching a picture of him launching his first boat. He did see it. And you? John smiled. He spent years protecting this place, waiting for the right person to take over. Not just someone who could manage the work, but someone who understood why it mattered. My secure phone buzzed, another urgent project. As I reviewed the specifications, I thought about appearances and reality, about assumptions and truth. The Warners had seen a failing shipyard and a woman they thought couldn't run it. They'd been wrong on both counts. A knock at my door made me look up. Daniel. I was hoping we could talk, he said hesitantly. About? I filed the divorce papers. He looked around the office at the models of ships whose true capabilities he'd never know. You've built something amazing here, haven't you? Something I'll never understand. Yes, I said simply. I'm sorry for not supporting you, for listening to my parents. I know, I stood up. But this is who I am, Daniel. Not the society wife your family wanted, but someone who builds things that matter. After he left, I walked through the yard as the sun set. Workers nodded respectfully, elite engineers and technicians who'd served under my grandfather, now loyal to me. My phone buzzed with a message from Admiral Richardson. New project coming. Bigger than anything we've done before. Are you ready? I smiled, remembering my grandfather's words about seeing beneath the surface, about finding value where others saw nothing. Ready, I texted back. The shipyard's lights came on, illuminating what looked like an ordinary industrial facility. But appearances, as my grandfather had taught me, can be deceiving. Inside those weathered buildings, we were shaping the future, and I was just getting started. Elizabeth still makes occasional attempts to rescue me from my embarrassing career. Howard still can't understand why his business contacts suddenly treat Pacific Maritime with wary respect. But I don't need their understanding. I have my grandfather's legacy, a vital mission, and the satisfaction of proving that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones others dismiss. They thought they were saving me from embarrassment. Instead, they almost cheated me out of my destiny. Looking out over the yard, I touched the model ship on my desk, the first one my grandfather had helped me build. Inside its hollow hull, he'd hidden a note I'd only found last week. Katie, the best ships aren't always the shiniest ones in the harbor. Sometimes they're the quiet ones that slip past without drawing attention, carrying precious cargo no one else can see. You were always meant for this. Show them what it means to see beneath the surface. Love, Grandpa. I picked up the secure phone as it buzzed again. Another classified project, another chance to prove that value isn't always visible to those who judge by appearances.